Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Baby in the Boardroom. So exciting today to have Amy Lynch with us for another We Can workshop. Amy's going to be talking about pitching and presenting with kids today. And I know there's a lot of moms on the call today who have babies that are off camera or maybe on camera. It's so great to have you with us today. So as we're getting started, why don't you go ahead and let us know in the Zoom chat where you're connecting from. If you want to do some networking as this Zoom presentation is taking place, we'd certainly invite that. And while you're doing that, I'll take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Carrie Ramsey, and I am the project manager for the We Can project, which is led by Queen's University and funded by FedDev Ontario. And as you're connecting in the Zoom chat, I want to acknowledge that Queen's University is located on the ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee peoples. And just recently, I was reading a really interesting report. It was published by, and I want to get this right, the National Collaborating Center for Aboriginal Health. And the name of the report was The Sacred Space of Womanhood, Mothering Across the Generations. And it's really an Indigenous look at motherhood. And there was an interesting little section I thought I would just read today. It was really short, and it says, mothering is fundamental to all beings. Mothering involves nurturing and raising children. Mothering extends far beyond biology and bodies. Mothering is the act and practice of love and the passing on of knowledge. Mothering occurs across multiple times and spaces. Mothering is political. Mothering is life. And I thought that was so interesting today as we're tackling this topic of, doing something that might be a little bit unusual or that has been, pushed to the side in the past. And Amy, I know, has her hands full as well with a growing family, and she's going to share her perspectives on that today. But I thought I would just bring in some of that Indigenous philosophy, which I thought was so interesting. So welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Go ahead and introduce yourselves if you haven't already in the Zoom chat. Amy, I'm excited to turn the floor over to you so we can get into this topic today. Welcome. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Carrie, and welcome, everyone. This is a rare opportunity for me to present without holding a baby or having kids around, because my two older kids are in school right now. Their ages 4 and 6, and my baby is currently playing with his dad. He's almost 14 months old, but last time I talked about this, he joined me, and there was an exerciser and a soft play area behind me and lots of sounds effects and babbling, because he was about 6 months old. So he might join me at some point during this session, but ideally I'll just be able to lead the workshop and see you with all of your beautiful families. So I am Amy. I'm a mom of 3 kids, 3 boys, and I became a parent when I was living overseas and working as a remote freelancer. I was doing marketing communications at the time, and I got into a startup program where I was living in England, and I was pregnant at the time when I applied for this, and he was 7 weeks old whenever I started. So I really did it as a way to meet other parents. The program was designed for people who are parents who had a startup idea or an existing business, and it was held in the Google for Startup space. So they converted their space for parents. And that was kind of my first experience that was a non-baby play group or prenatal yoga type experience. And from there, I just kept bringing him everywhere because I didn't have childcare or a family nearby. And I became a bit of an accidental activist. We relocated to Canada when he was not quite a year old. I kept doing the same thing here and realizing I was encountering the same problems in business spaces, like a lack of baby change facilities, workshops and events held really early in the morning or late after work. And I didn't feel like I was able to attend because it was either breakfast or dinner and bedtime. And I just thought, wow, if I'm putting myself out there and not seeing many other people like me, maybe they're just staying at home, or maybe they just think they're not allowed to come. So I had a blog at the time, which I still write on occasionally, but it's evolved since then. And I got a bit of a reaction to my kind of live, my sharing my reality really on LinkedIn and on my blog. And I started to focus on creating things for parents. So that's how Mixing Babies in Business got started, all thanks to the little guy holding the Lightning McQueen car down in that photo. So why I'm here has all kind of stemmed from my belief from the time I married someone from another country and became a parent overseas, that I just really believe that everyone deserves to design a life that works for them and their family. So we've done some unconventional things in order to live and work together in the same country and have kids together. And everything I've done from a business and work perspective has kind of come from that belief. And it makes it really easy for me to remember my why and to keep going when I want to continue to create things for everyone to be able to do the same. The last few years has seen people get more comfortable with that perspective, and businesses kind of start to wake up if they haven't already been awake to the fact that people might not want to work 9 to 5 or longer Monday to Friday. School times don't always correspond to business working hours. Flexible, quality, affordable childcare isn't widely available to everyone where they live. And governments are also waking up to this with the creation of the new childcare policy in Canada, especially. But you see, this is a recent example for you. We took our kids out of our before and after care program to go see family overseas. We came back and now we're on a waiting list for the program. So we have this wonderful new childcare policy that not everyone can access because there's a lack of childcare providers. So there's definitely a disconnect between societal needs, parenthood, the economy, workforce participation. So I talk about this often. I've spoken at quite a few live events and online events, on podcasts, done written interviews, hosted meetings, one-on-ones, entered pitch competitions, applied for awards, etc., all around this belief that I believe that people should be able to show up as they are, as their full selves. So as Carrie mentioned, if you could put where you're from in the chat and anything about your family and your business that you feel comfortable sharing, she will be reading out the chat responses for me throughout this, because I have a few kind of interactive prompts for you. So it'd be great to see where you're from and how you are currently mixing babies in business, if at all. Some of the things that I do to try to meet parents where they are is I've created meetups in business spaces, which I have likened to women's circles. And when I've gone to events that are focused on Indigenous entrepreneurship, some of the speakers that I've met there and individuals that I've spoken with have made me realize that Indigenous families and entrepreneurs have been doing this since the beginning of time, and they continue to mix babies in business with powwow pitches that are accessible for families. Everyone is there from the community, and for some reason we have started to separate and segregate families and I guess the workers of society. And what I do is I try to create a child-friendly play area in a traditionally business startup space. So this photo is from Algonquin College's Dare District. And I've also hosted these events at Bayview Yards, which is the home of Invest Ottawa. And I've had an interesting response to them. It's kind of like a social experiment. People walk by and see babies crawling around a traditional workshop room or a guest speaker setup where people are building blocks on the side, and it kind of makes them pause and question. And other people then, it's like a light bulb moment. Sometimes you see people wondering, yeah, where do the kids go during the workday? Or what is it like for these parents that are trying to get access to this information, and why is it so hard? So I also created a podcast, launched it in 2020 to continue hosting conversations with parents who are also business and community leaders. And that is available on most platforms. And you can see my middle child there at the age of, I think he's about 2 there. He's now 4, but he has definitely sat on my lap many times when I've been trying to either schedule or edit podcast episodes from home. And there's now 4 seasons available and over 60 episodes for you to tune into. These are some recent stats, though, to fire you up that I've read in preparation of this workshop. And I feel like, of course, you might already be fired up or wanting to do this because you're here today, or you're listening to this if you log on in future to watch the recording. But these are some real current stats that just show that what I thought was a problem before 2020 has gotten worse and is an even more pressing issue. So as it stands, less than 2% of funded research in the United States relates to women's health care, aside from oncology. And that was reported in a McKinsey article from 2022. Women-led companies worldwide received under 2% of venture capital funding, which was a drop of almost 1% from 2019, and that's from a couple of different sources worldwide. So the venture capital funding has decreased for women-led companies. In addition to that, in Canada specifically, women took over childcare with kids under the age of 18. Over 67% of women in Canada took over additional childcare duties during the pandemic, as compared to 28% of men. And that's a recent report from the Women's Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub. And aside from that, there are almost 37% of Canadian entrepreneurs identify as women. That number has dropped by over 80,000 since before the pandemic. So women are quitting their businesses or maybe pausing from their businesses. And we've seen a lot of women leaving the workforce. You've probably seen the headlines that some people are just not returning to their careers because of their unpaid labor that they're doing at home or for loved ones. So I would love to know, I'll go through this in the next slide, but these are some reasons why I think why you might want to bring your kids into business settings or to pitch and present alongside your kids. I don't believe you should have to justify it. I have had to explain it a few times, and most people are polite and they don't question it. But I recently posted on LinkedIn about how some people have asked if my kids, or they've likened them to props for my talk. And I usually don't correct them in the moment, but it just makes me wonder if they think that I can just take them out when I need them and put them away somewhere like you would a stage prop, because that's not what kids are for and not how they are. But I just wonder if they realize how big of a problem a lack of flexible, affordable, quality childcare is. How many people have relocated or are living in a place where they don't have a local village? They're either not from Canada or not from the city that they're living or working in, or the rural area that they're living and working in. So they might not have family or friends to rely on. It might be their parenting style. There's lots of different types of parenting styles. And if you are breastfeeding or attachment parenting or adapting to different nap routines, it might not work for you to leave your child with someone else, especially if they are a newborn, like my son was whenever I started this program when he was 7 weeks old. It was much easier for me I didn't really have the option, but it was much easier for me to bring him, wear him, feed him there, change him there. Might be your own routines, your own work routines or family routines that you have. And it could be the event and meeting times that have been scheduled. You just might not have a choice. So for some of the events I've gone to, they started at 7:30 and you were required to be there in order to be able to apply for a funding opportunity, for example. So I would wake my son up. He usually would already be awake when he was a baby by 6 a.m. And I would pack breakfast for him. I would drive to this workshop. I would feed him his breakfast at the workshop. I was the only person wheeling the stroller in. And I just refused to opt out because I really wanted to be able to apply for this funding opportunity. And that required, I believe it was 10 sessions over once a week, going at 7:30 in the morning. And it might just be that you simply want to, and you don't want to have to explain it to anyone. So I think there's a variety of reasons. Feel free to share any other reasons that you have in the chat if you have your own. This is a moment to pause to reflect, and I might ask for Carrie's help with this one, but I have a list of things that may describe you currently. So in terms of your current comfort and experience level of bringing your kids into business settings, are you kind of doubtful of how it could work in your situation? Are you curious and eager to learn more and try it out? Are you scared of the unknown and freaked out by the idea of bringing your kids into business settings and what could happen? Or have you already done it and you're actively preparing for your next adventure and you love doing it and you're on board and this is just how you operate?
Great question. So yeah, if you want to drop a one-word answer to that, I know some of you have your arms full.
So
So
doubtful, or you could just type D, C, S, or P.
exactly, whatever is easiest for you today. Let us know what stage you're at. I think this is a great reflective question, to be honest. And I won't say, on the recording who's answering what, but it's an interesting question. And when I look back at when I was a young mom who had kids at home still, I think I was probably doubtful. I was like, how could this work? How could I actually make this work? And again, I think it's because the systems in place were definitely against that process. So we have one participant saying doubtful, but also curious. And can I say intimidated? Which is,
That's fair.
I love that. Yeah, that's fair. And that's perfectly honest. I would hope that, I think, again, I'm hopeful isn't an answer there, but today, that's how I'm feeling. I'm feeling, okay, there is an alternative, right? And when I even look at, the next generation of young moms and thinking, yeah, that would be awesome.
I will say I'm a curious person by nature. I studied journalism, so that helped. But I did think that doing the program initially and kind of jumping in at the start made me realize, even though they created something for parents, half of the participants didn't bring their kids because they were doubtful or they were already in school, or they just didn't think it would work for them. So they wanted to just focus on the session. So even though there was something created explicitly for parents, I still saw people hesitating. And I will say that I usually am scared before something, before an opportunity, depending on what it is, especially if I know it's going to be, I'll say, very male focused session or tech focused session that is maybe they can't see the value of what I'm bringing, because people would describe my business as more of a service-based business. But I've spoken in front of audiences of developers that were primarily men, and I was pleasantly surprised after that they approached me to say, my wife is due soon and this information is so important, I really want to share this with her, and I didn't realize this could be so hard for her once the baby's here. So
Amazing.
you never know what will happen.
A couple more comments I'll just throw out there as well. One participant says curious and preparing for more weaving mom life into creative life. And then another says preparing to do the same with number 2 or to bring kiddos to classes. We often have the little guy at events, but feel bad because they're definitely not exciting for him, especially now that he's more into the kids stage versus the potato stage.
Yes, I do relate to that. Once they're asking about what kinds of snacks are there, it's almost more challenging to bring them than when they're that preschool age or toddler age. And you might want to try it and you might hate it and you might say, this is not for me, this is too stressful. There's too many variables that I can't control. You don't know until you try. So if we're not going to read out anything else, I think I'll just continue on here. But yeah, it's definitely, I wouldn't say it's very widely accepted, because a lot of the things that I've pitched to or applied to, I haven't always told them that I'm bringing a child or a baby with me until after it's confirmed that I'm speaking. So
Surprise.
Yeah, but this session is all about that. So pitching and presenting with kids. So all the photos are of me speaking at events or of my home, my kids, my family life. This is a keynote session I did for running remote conference this past spring in Montreal. It was a hybrid one, so it was streamed live and I was on stage in front of a crowd. And my son at that stage was 4 months old. And in this photo, he's asleep, but he did wake up. I fed him right before I went on stage. It worked out fine. The talk was under 30 minutes. I will say that most sessions that I do alongside my kids, they have to be under 30 minutes, or I won't say yes, or I try to shorten them. And everything is always pending what happens in the moment. This whole session is my approach. I'm not saying you have to do it this way, but this is my simplified view of public speaking. You might research what opportunities are out there, apply, do your slides. If you get accepted, go back and forth over promotions. You're going to plan for the session or the meeting if it's a meeting that you've organized. Then you're going to do a lot of preparation for the actual day, get ready to show up and speak your points or to host your meeting. And then after that, if you're like me, you might be a bit drained, or you just might need to come down from that energy level or that situation, or there might be a lot to take in from your audience or the person or people that you're meeting with. So I like to kind of block in a rest and recovery period, or do something as a reward, kind of like an incentive for putting myself out there and being scared and doing it anyways. And then you can just repeat that cycle. If it's a talk that you want to do multiple times in front of different audiences, you can repeat this cycle. But when you add children into the mix, it can often look like this. So there are a lot of variables to think about. I didn't have a photo of a baby carrier, but I would always pack a baby carrier, extra diapers, a diaper bag, a bottle or food, or if you're breastfeeding, you might need to consider things like nursing pads and what you're wearing on the day. Is it easy to feed the child while you're speaking or before and after without having to find a private room if you need to? Is there a private room on site or a quiet area that you can feed them? Because if you have a baby that's really curious or really active, they might be too distracted to feed, and then that can result in a meltdown. You might need to bring extra clothes. I say might, you definitely need to bring extra clothes for them. I would also bring an extra shirt, if not more, for you. Wipes, muslin cloth or burp cloth, depending on what you use, extra snacks for both you and any kids that you're bringing with you. You can't guarantee that the food on site will be something that they'll want to eat or that they can eat. And a pacifier if you use that, or other toys to kind of soothe them. If you have a stroller and the venue is accessible and you've checked that out in advance, that can help with them napping on the spot. And I don't have a support person or anyone pictured here, but you definitely, if you have a family member or a friend or someone who works with the event or the organization who's a speaker support or a presenter liaison, and they have a volunteer or someone that can be your point person or help you out on the day, that is hugely valuable as well. So let's just compare pre-kids, post-kids. There's a lot to think about. And I'm not saying you have to do it all yourself, but it can seem overwhelming before you even get out the door. What's not pictured in this photo of me speaking at Creative Mornings is the huge double stroller that I brought, their winter jackets, a lot of snacks. There was a volunteer helping me with my little guy who was 3 at the time, because he was kind of running around on the stage, on and off, eating, playing with his car. And this was only for a 5-minute talk, followed by a panel speaking talk. So there was quite a lot that went into that. But don't worry, I have good news if you are considering doing something like this. I have found over the past almost 7 years in bringing my kids into business settings, and I have 3 now, and I've done it with each of them multiple times. I've found that speaking to people as an audience is easier than speaking with people alongside your kids. If you've ever taken a phone call or tried to make a phone call, and in that 2 to 5 minute conversation, everyone starts screaming in the background or asking you for a snack or fighting with each other, you will understand what I mean. This looks like I'm juggling a little bit. I do have my middle son. He definitely did try to grab the mic off of me a lot. I didn't try it with a speaker pack and an earpiece with him. I did find that I had to kind of hold the mic away sometimes. But again, I kept the talks short. And I found it was definitely easier than trying to host a one-on-one meeting or speaking with someone on the phone or even online. A session like this can sometimes be the hardest to do when you have young kids at home because they don't understand the difference between, from what I can see, they don't understand the difference between mommy speaking to an audience on the video screen or on the camera versus being in front of a sea of faces. It's very different for them and their energy level and how they behave, in my experience. So I think more face-to-face things are easier, especially if they can accommodate, if they offer pop-up childcare on site or a childcare stipend, or you're able to bring someone with you, you can get some sensory play in and ideally find a park or something nearby that's outside after to decompress. And that has worked well for me. The other thing that I've found has worked well is booking a room. If you can book a boardroom or a meeting room, wherever you're meeting someone or pitching to someone. And if they're okay with holding your baby while you load your pitch deck, which I've definitely asked people to do before, then it can be great. If they offer to hold your child or play with your child, I'm not guaranteeing that will happen, but I've had many meetings where it's been a walking and talking type meeting, or they've helped with my child at the time, which I didn't go in expecting, but just try to kind of control that environment if you can. So this is how I approach pitching and presenting with kids. I have a mini guide that I can email you after. Carrie has asked for you to email me if you would like to access that. So it's a free mini guide. My email address is contact@amymaureenlynch.com. You can also go to the mixingbabiesandbusiness.com website, and there's a free resources section there. But I have a mini guide that goes over these in detail. And it's a handy thing to just look at before your events. I have a packing list and some sample ideas for you. So I try to prepare like a pro, explore my options in advance of going to the session, show up as I am, and then recharge my batteries and repeat after that. So these points are for when you're trying to find opportunities and pitch yourself or respond to opportunities if you've been asked. I think that before the main event, you should try to do as much preparation as you can. I like to type notes sometimes just as speaking points. That's how I learn, just helps me absorb. But in the moment, it can be really hard to read speaking points, especially if you're nursing a child or wearing a child. And I have breastfed my kids as babies, and I sometimes find that I didn't have the recall that I wanted to. It's sometimes helpful to have your notes with you on site and even have someone refer you to where you are in that if there's no teleprompter or slide prompts. So you'll find a lot of my sessions that I've done, I like to also put points on the slides because that helps prompt things for me if I can't have notes at the time. So I think you will also want to try to adapt your routines now, whether that's eating, feeding, sleeping, napping, get kids used to, look at how much you'll need to bring on the day, depending on the season. In Canada, it's winter now. We have a bit of a snow day at school today. It takes way longer to get out the door and be on time than it does in summer. Once you have confirmed you're speaking, if you want to be like me, explain your reality. Sometimes I've explained it in advance, but a lot of the time I've kind of done it after the fact, and I'll explain why in a minute. People are usually very empathetic though, once you explain your reality, and sometimes they'll even share a story about their family or relate to what you're saying. And then pack your bags. I say bags, which is scary, but my diaper bag just won't hold enough snacks and toys that I need. But your extra clothes, anything that you want to have in either the bottom of the stroller, if you're taking public transit, or if you have a vehicle that you're bringing, I would leave some things in the car in case you have to go back to change, especially if you're going to be at something for a while. And when in doubt, I would try to pack light because stuff can break and you might end up carrying everything, as I've also ended up doing. So here's a list of things to consider. I will read them out for you, but with both online and in person, you're going to want to think of how you're going to get there or log on. Is there software that you need to download? Is your computer working? Are your headphone, your mic working? Do you need to Google Map the route to the venue, or the way that you can walk there, or what the nearest transit stops are? Check how long you'll be away from either your home or online, depending on if you're bringing your kids with you or not. You're going to just want to be realistic about when you're going to have to leave in order to get there for the time that you need to be there for, and how big of a chunk of time that will be, and how it will affect everybody's nap time, feeding routines. What's nearby that you might need that is within reach? So if you're not able to pack a whole lot of diapers, or if you're low on things, is there a pharmacy or chemist or grocery shop nearby that you can go in and get diapers at, or formula or baby food if you need it? If something breaks, are you okay with approaching strangers for help? Because I've definitely had to do that a lot. Not every time, but I'm very comfortable with asking people for help now and receiving help when it's offered. Meltdowns do happen. You can't control how your kids are going to react to an environment or a new situation, but you know your kid, and you know what might set them off or calm them down. So think of either something nearby that they would enjoy, or a special toy. Is there a quiet area in the venue that you can take them to if that does happen? As I mentioned, when in doubt, pack lighter. Prepare for the worst and hope for the best. The recent trip we just took was a good example of that. I was advised through, I think it was a blog post, they said pack a diaper for every hour of travel. And we were flying overseas, and there's a bit of a time difference. So that would mean, maybe 20 to 30 diapers. That sounds like a lot, but when things go wrong, you might need those diapers, as we did. So that is a good rule of thumb for even when you're speaking at events or going somewhere, especially with babies that are really young. Pack a diaper for every hour that you're going to be away, minimum, and then hope for the best. There is a sample packing list in your free mini guide that I mentioned. Now I have a 5-minute exercise. So if you need to take a break or do anything, you can go do that at any time, of course, but this is just an opportunity for you to have a bit of a brainstorm about what your main points that you want to get across are, either as a speaking engagement or when you're doing a pitch or hosting a meeting. So what is your key message and your call to action that you want to get across? When you take it back to my initial one, it was that I believe everyone deserves to design a life that works for them and their family. And when I was pitching to host meetups in these startup spaces, the main point that I would say is parenthood and professional development shouldn't be mutually exclusive. So I was trying to come up with something that would illustrate my point and be easy to remember. And then I had my ask ready to go. Could I please use your venue to illustrate this point or to host parents in this space? So if you have a pen and paper handy, or your phone or computer, whichever, I don't think letter blocks will work. You'll run out of space. Okay, so we were just talking about refining your message and how doing it alongside your kids can really help you to condense your message and get clarity on it. Because when you have to practice it with your kids around, as you can see, I have a baby, I call this the feedback position, where I have my baby over my shoulder and I would be rocking him and talking, or, you do all these positions when you're in person to try to keep your child comfortable. And especially if they're not quite walking yet, they want to be active and move around. Practice it with your kids around. If you like to wing it like me and do it just in the moment, that's fine, but you might want to do a practice run at home. The next way that I approach things is exploring your options. So looking at visiting the venue in advance, I've gone to places before the main event or before the session that I wanted to go to, just so that I knew how long it would take me in reality to get there, where the parking was or where the public transit was, and how the venue was laid out so that on the day I wasn't panicked. You can't always do that. Whenever I spoke in the spring in Montreal, I went straight to the hotel. I did go to the venue though, I think that afternoon before the main day, just to see how long it took to walk with a stroller and if there was any weird traffic lights or things that would cause me to be late. Confirm the essentials that you'll need. So this can be for you as a parent, but also for the event, the speakers or the meeting. You can check with the organizers what you need to bring to be prepared. Some people will want you to bring your slides on the day. Some want it well in advance. Other ones will want you to test it out at the time before the main event or do a sound check. So be prepared for that. Ask for help and don't be shy. This is something that I probably wasn't great at before I became a parent. I would just kind of muddle through and try to figure things out. And I got really comfortable. It's almost like kids force you to just surrender to the point where you realize you cannot do certain things by yourself. I've gotten really good at articulating my needs in the moment and in advance, and also receiving the help when people offer it. And if you can, I always try to make it into an adventure. So that's just not just for your kids, but also for you, something that you can do that's fun nearby or around or afterwards if you live somewhere that's near a park, just to decompress. But if you're going to a new part of a city or a new location, or it's a building you've never been in before and there's some stuff around that interests your kids or you, try to make it into a day out, especially if the thing you're going to is kind of in the middle of the day and it doesn't make sense to come home until later. I really want to stress the point that you should not wait to be invited to speak. I have been approached by people in the past, but again, it was after speaking about the same topic a few times and I guess being more visible in certain areas that they asked me to speak. But do not wait to be invited, because you could be waiting a while, especially if you're at home with preschool age kids, or you could just never be asked. So this is a Creative Mornings lightning talk that I did in April 2019, but I had emailed the lead in Ottawa in November because I'd seen a topic that they were doing every month has a theme. And I had said, hey, this is what my work is about. I'd really love to speak for one of your talks. This is the community that I've been creating, and I've been to these Creative Morning events in England and in Ottawa, and I would love to be a speaker. So I put myself out there almost 6 months-ish before, and then they hosted an event where they had 5 speakers, and they were looking, the topic was inclusion, and they were looking for a variety of different speakers that speak to different types of audiences, and they asked if I'd be interested. At the time, I knew my husband would be traveling for work and I would be with the kids at home, but I knew that I might not have another chance to do it. So I said yes and figured it out afterwards. I ended up having a volunteer that was with Creative Mornings help look after my oldest there in the orange shirt, and also help look after me as a speaker. My parents live nearby, live less than an hour away, so they came in and helped me so that I could leave the house on time in the morning. Without them, I probably would have been late, because these talks are at 8 in the morning, 8:30, I believe it starts. So I knew I had to be downtown by 8 to park and walk over and unpack. So it's something that I definitely would have said no to normally, but I had pitched it almost 6 months before and I just wanted to take advantage of it. So that's just a little story for you on how you never know what can happen whenever you pitch your ideas. You don't know how long it can take, but whenever it does arise, you should try to seize the opportunity, but put yourself out there first. It's always good to remember it's easier to ask forgiveness than to get permission. This has been attributed to many different people over the years. I don't know who the original quote was attributed to, but it is kind of a mantra that I live by, especially since becoming a parent, that when I don't tell people I have kids that I'm bringing with me, or the way that I'm going to present Myself, I believe it's easier to ask for forgiveness than to get permission. Don't give away your power and let other people dictate how you will show up for yourself and your business and your family. This is not an exhaustive list, but it's a pretty good example of the types of help I've had. I just mentioned my parents, the grandparents helping with the getting ready routine. I've had strangers, sometimes people that I'm pitching to, offer to hold my baby. People opening the door because you're coming into a venue with a stroller or little ones. People who've given me directions when I'm lost. Someone during a pitch in front of over 30 people. I was in front of this workshop and we had to explain our business and what we do. And my son was 7 weeks at the time and he had really bad reflux and he threw up all over me. And I didn't have a shirt that day to change into, but someone came and gave me wipes and just was like, I'm so sorry. What can I do to help? But I've had that happen in a few different instances where people have helped with wiping baby spit up, either on the floor or on you. I was walking to a pitch with my stroller. I was about to get on public transit in London and my stroller broke completely. The wheels wouldn't work. And I knew if I went back to my flat and then got the baby carrier and dropped the stroller off, I'd be late. So a person at the train station who worked there helped fix it with a not a safety pin, a paper clip fix. And it got me onto the train. And then I just wore my baby and used the stroller to put my stuff in. But that's what I mean whenever I say pack as lightly as you can, because you just never know how much stuff you'll end up carrying, especially if something malfunctions. So I did ask him for help with my stroller. I thought I just couldn't get it going, but it actually needed to be replaced, the chassis. So that's another good example of asking a stranger for help. Asking for flexible meeting times. Asking for food and drink. I don't always ask people for this, but people have offered to get me a coffee or a seat. Excuse me. People have even cut up my food. Sounds a bit drastic, but when you're feeding a baby, it's really hard to cut up your food, especially if you're breastfeeding. I've had people tell me when I need to change slides. Sorry, I'm just going to mute myself. All right, just had to pause there for example, had to ask Carrie to help me because I needed to cough really bad. This is why I keep a lot of my sessions shorter, because when you're only talking to little people a lot, it can get draining. So what I was saying before was that I've had people, they've actually used the clicker for me if my hands were full, or they've prompted me in terms of the timing of things or the slide change, or I've, prompted them to change the slide. I've had someone hold the microphone for me while I was speaking because I was holding a baby that was feeding at the time. And I really wanted to ask a question at an event that I was at. I've had complete strangers help me lift the stroller on and off of public transit. And as I mentioned, was saving your seat or getting you a seat at an event. There's many other things, but for now, that's it. And I've had to learn to get comfortable with saying what I needed, but also accepting it in the moment and not saying, oh, it's fine, I'm okay. For what just happened there, if I would have carried on, it wouldn't have been as good as Carrie saying, go and grab a glass of water and just take a break. So you'll be surprised if you're bringing your kids into business settings and pitching or hosting meetings, how many people will be like, oh, take your time. What do you need? What can I get you? So have those answers ready. This is another chance to pause. If we don't want to do it for the full 5 minutes, that's fine. But I'd like to know where your current comfort zone is in terms of the types of speaking engagements that you are willing to do alongside your kids. Is it just a private one-on-one meeting? Would you be comfortable to do a panel event or be a keynote speaker? And or just even showing up to a workshop or a professional development opportunity. Are you willing to be more of an attendee than someone who's at the front of the room? So how can you get better at asking for help and putting yourself out there?
Great. So I'll pause the recording just to give us a couple of minutes to work on that.
Okay, so I see there's a comment from Ainsley that says, I will sometimes attend with my baby, but I usually have childcare for when I'm speaking. And I'll say my comfort zone previously, I guess, was attending those workshops that I registered for and that I was accepted to that program. And I knew that because the program only had 35 people in it, and they made it clear that there was applicants from across, 3 different countries, not that you were lucky to be there, but that they chose you for a reason. It kind of pumped me up a little bit to go, okay, I'm going to make the most of this opportunity. And when they asked me to speak or share my idea, I'm going to do it. But I did then not apply to speak at anything until I started having meetings, one-on-ones with people, and that kind of built up my confidence. And it wasn't until hosting my events and meetups that I had enough, I felt validation from my potential audience and other people through programming I did, that I thought, okay, I have something here. The best way for me to share it, the most efficient way for me to share it, is in front of a larger group of people, ideally if it's recorded and can be repurposed afterwards. So that's when I started to apply for things like creative mornings and other guest speaking opportunities, because I realized if I want to reach more people, I have to tap into audiences that I don't have time to build on my own, because I'm changing diapers and literally my hands are full. But if I can talk, I can still feed my baby at the same time. And as Carrie mentioned when we were offline there briefly, going back to those statistics that I shared at the beginning, women aren't being represented in venture capital investments, in women's health research, in entrepreneurship as much as they could be, despite accounting for half the population. The main area they've been represented in is as childcare providers for children under ages 18. That's where you see the over 50% increase, which to me is the reason why we're not seeing more women in these rooms or in leadership positions or on stages. And I really feel that if you wait for childcare to catch up, or event organizers to cop on to the fact that they could provide pop-up childcare, they could offer a stipend for speakers, they could pay guest speakers, so that there's no decision being made between, well, how am I going to look after my child or pay someone else to, and then show up in the way that I want to. So there's many things that need to change, but I don't believe they're changing fast enough. And I believe that the best way for it to change right now is for you to keep putting yourself out there and to not let that deter you. So that's my soapbox that I stand on all the time. But in doing so, you don't know whose opinions you're changing when you go into these venues or into these spaces. And a lot of the people in these rooms also have families, and their kids are either at school or childcare, or maybe they're grown, but they understand the difficulties you're going through a lot of the time to be there, and they're very supportive.
Yeah,
So don't feel like
I've always
you don't
said you
belong.
need to see it to be it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Erin also dropped a comment in there, just be as we're going to the next slide, but you're talking about the comfort zone, and she talks about Zoom meetings and online pitchings. She's totally good with. In person, only comfortable in settings when there are other children present. Kind of goes back to that, what we were talking about, this idea of when you don't see it, you're not going to show up and say, this is what's allowed, or this is what is permitted. And so I think that more that happens, I think that will maybe catch on a little bit more.
Yeah, and it's really hard to go into a space and be there knowing that there's no baby change table there, that the space wasn't chosen with parents in mind, that there's no one else bringing their kid. People might not be approaching you because you have a baby with you. But at the same time, on the flip side, people come up to me more. And my husband accompanied me in the spring. It was the first time he'd ever gone to a guest speaking opportunity with me. And he had so many people coming up to him. He said he was like my PR representative or something, but people were saying they recognized when he was with our son that we were attending the event together, and they were talking about their families and my talk and the message I was sharing. And I had so many people come up and show me pictures of their kids and what their remote work setup was at home, and just explain the reality that people just really opened up to me. So you can look at the negatives of, lack of changed facilities and no private rooms, or maybe there's no fridge on site, or you have to go to a cafe next door to get hot water. There's a lot of things that can be hurdles to you not even saying you want to go, or to not even leaving your home. But then you also miss a lot of opportunities. So you have to decide where your comfort level is and if you want to expand beyond it in the future. This is my third part of my approach, just showing up as I am, trying not to be apologetic for my appearance. I will say, I sweat a lot more when I present alongside my kids, whether it's a meeting or on stage. I'm not an overly athletic person. I don't do a lot of, physical training and stuff, but I find when you're baby wearing, our son now is like over 12 kilos. And when you have stuff with you that you're bringing either as a backpack or you're pushing a stroller or whatever, and if you are nursing a baby or are postpartum, you definitely have all of these hormone things happening and your body's changing. I just feel like you can be really uncomfortable and you can say, okay, I just want to stay home and not do this, or just do virtual things. And that's totally fine, because the world is meeting you with those requirements or requests now. And there's never been a better time for you to just say, no, I'm going to do things virtually. But I do really like the face-to-face connection, and with my meetups that I host and some things that I speak at, there is a bit of social behavior change happening at the same time by people witnessing this in a business space. But I'm more extroverted as a person. So it really depends on how you are designed. I try to embrace the opportunity and look for the positives, but I really try to make sure that the audience I'm speaking to either is going to be managing parents or designing workplaces for parents, or are parents themselves. So I'm clear on who I'm speaking to and why, and it makes it easier for me to say yes to things or to put myself out there. I try to adapt to the challenges that arise. So everything is an adventure and a new opportunity to learn. And every time I've done something, I've learned something. And depending on the child I did it alongside or the number of kids I brought, I would realize what worked that time or didn't work, what I wanted to bring forward. And now I kind of have my own little, I guess, system of what I do, the types of clothes I wear, the things that I will or will not do, the ideally nice to haves that I would love to do, like get my hair and makeup done before a speaking engagement. That would be great. It's not always practical to do when you have a newborn. So you might have to adjust your expectations as a speaker of what you traditionally would do pre-kids. But if you've never done speaking before, aside from having kids and being a business owner, you don't know any different. So you'll probably feel a big change when you're not bringing your kids with you to business settings. I try to be present in the moment when I'm speaking and with the audience that I'm speaking to, the questions that I have. I really try to be as present as I can. And I have a lot of practices that I do before and after to help with that, and just enjoy the experience, because it shouldn't be painful, even if there are some that you maybe go, oh, that was embarrassing, or oh, that didn't work. I've had mic drop out things. I just had to cough there previously. You've had like slides that might skip or different things that go wrong. But there's a lot of things out of your control. And I think that parenthood really prepares you to go with the flow and adapt to these things. The main thing is you won't know unless you try. So if you want to opt out completely, that's fine. But because you've joined us today, I get the impression that you are curious and maybe want to try it more. You won't know how receptive people are to you showing up with your kids in business settings unless you try. And you might decide, if people aren't that receptive to it, that you don't want to do business with those types of people anymore. Here is a list of ways that you could participate in future if you haven't already started putting yourself out there as a guest speaker or pitching at different competitions. So I've got a few examples of, depending on your comfort levels, you could apply to be a keynote speaker or a panel guest at a live event so that you're not the only person, you're not the main idea, maybe you're commentating on a topic. You could organize or host a meetup yourself on a specific topic where you're speaking as the host, but maybe you're moderating other guest speakers. You could lead a private mastermind, so you'd be speaking to more of a bespoke group of people on a specific topic in a private setting. Maybe it's not being broadcast or live. You can comment in the media as an expert on a certain field or based on your business. You can apply to be a podcast guest, or you can start your own podcast and interview other guests or speak solo episodes, narrative style, however you want to do it. You could, as I mentioned, moderate a conversation. Some people are MCs or facilitators of workshops or different events. If you prefer video and either being at home or doing things on the fly, you could start creating reels or use TikTok or Facebook, Instagram live type video to do things in the moment if you don't like scripted video style conversations. If you prefer scripted things and you want to be able to record and edit around your kids, then you could start to produce your own video channel. You can apply to enter pitch competitions, and depending on how you do, you might have to enter with a video application. A lot of them are asking for a 3 to 5 minute video now of your key message and the problem you're solving and what you need financially and why you need it and how you'd need the money, how you would use the money if you're awarded the funding. And then you might have to pitch on stage in front of other people, or be part of a panel, or go through even a mini accelerator or incubator program as part of the competition. So it might require more regular guest speaking or presenting opportunities. You can apply for your own award ceremonies if you want to nominate yourself. A lot of things you can nominate yourself or your business for, and that might provide a guest speaking opportunity for you. You might want to just start with one-on-one meetings, or just being a workshop participant and getting comfortable bringing your child or your children into business spaces. So I'm just reading some of the comments here. I don't know if Carrie wants to comment on any of them before I move on to the next slide.
So yeah, we were just chatting there about this idea of being messy and I guess, you were talking about the fact that, we can be embarrassed, but I mean, when we talk about shame and that sort of thing, I think it's like, why are we feeling the shame, and who is making us feel this shame about literally being a mother and raising children? And you've been talking about moms, but of course the same thing applies to dads, of course. And we're moms on the call here today, but the same thing is, it's inclusive for both genders or all genders really. And so, yeah, so that was just sort of the chat that was happening there around this idea of showing up messy and being okay with that.
Yeah, and my partner is male, and he speaks about our kids in business settings. People know he is a parent, and he's had people say that the way he leads teams or just exists, I guess, as a parent, it gives other people permission to show up as they are as well. So we are very open about, I guess they call it loud leaving, or, when you go to pick up your kids from school or childcare or whichever, and you're not sneaking out of the room, you're going, and your team knows that you're leaving, or your colleagues or whichever. There shouldn't be this, secretive thing around, oh, I have kids, but I don't talk about them. And people can't know that I have kids if I want to keep my leadership position or my reputation as a business owner. But it really depends, if you don't want to talk about your family all the time, that's fine too. It's just, I believe there's less separation required in a workplace environment than there ever has been. And I believe you should be able to show up as you are. So I just had another exercise here. I know not everyone can stay on for the last bit of this session, but I wanted you to just take away what kind of speaking opportunities or meetings, workshops, professional development opportunities are you willing to try in the coming year? And I won't hold you to it, but if you want to type in the chat and share something that you're going to do that's a bit different than you normally would, that would be great. So I see Ainsley has shared that sometimes my husband will take the baby when he has a meeting for work happening from home. Lots of positive responses from his colleagues. We've definitely experienced that too with remote work. And I've brought our youngest son to quite a few business meetings lately as well. I've been working remotely with another business, but when we have face-to-face meetings, I at times bring him and they're excited to see him. So, but they're aware that he's coming as well. They're just, I guess my work has evolved in a way that I really only work with people who know I have kids and don't mind if I bring them. So I mentioned when we were not recording there that in the new year, I'd like to try to be a podcast guest on a few other podcasts and maybe apply for some other speaking events and start resurfacing and going to things in person. I'm going to one on Parliament Hill in a couple weeks, and I have brought my kids to it before, but I know that they have really high security and you have to put your stroller and everything through. It's like going through security clearance at the airport. So it's much easier for me to go by myself. I have seen other women bringing their babies to this event as well, but yeah, just trying to network with people in person again. I see Victoria is also shared. Our little guy has a few favorite toys and snacks that often hold him over at events. The more we take him to, the easier it is for him to sit nicely for the duration. Yeah, I guess I don't want to say that it applies to everyone and this will be your experience, but I have 3 kids now. They're all very different. And I think it's just been something that they've gotten used to over time, but it can also depend on how you are as a person, as a parent, and how the energy of the room is around you. If it's really loud. I went to Collision Conference a couple years ago. I didn't bring kids. They did have a parent and baby area or parent and child area. And I did go and chat to other parents that I saw there, but there were, very bright lights, lots of loud music. I could see why people would use noise canceling headphones for young kids and why you might want to have some breaks in quieter areas if you're going to that kind of stuff with them. And yeah, Carrie's commented that it could also help when he has to sit still in school too. Yeah, I don't know. I've not observed mine sitting still in school, so I don't know if that's true, but they don't make strange, I guess, as much as they could have because they're used to being in front of people. And they're also very comfortable grabbing this microphone and pretending to sing or speak into it. The final part of this is just recharging and repeating. So after the main event, I've always tried to adopt a growth mindset and, take what works, leave what doesn't, learn from the experience, but look after my wellness and be kind to myself. I've previously spoken at a weekend project online workshop with Carrie where I had to cancel the initial one because I got really sick. I was pregnant at the time, so we rescheduled for a couple months later, but I'm usually pretty honest with my health things and where I'm at, and I'm not afraid to cancel or not go to something if a child is sick or I'm sick. So please look after yourselves. Block in recovery time to decompress and reflect on what worked well and to rest your body and your mind. And your business. I feel like if you have ebb and flow and there's a bit of a void or a time for you to settle, a lot of things will come to you in that time. Something that I've experienced where if you're not pushing and striving all the time, things can flow to you. I have a time blocking template that I created a couple of years ago for people. It's something I've used since being a freelancer. I've used it on our whiteboard at home, on a written hard paper calendar, but I made an Excel, Google Sheets document to help you with ideas for your home, your work, and your own self and wellness, with little ideas that can be done in 15 to 30 minutes, which is helpful when you have preschool age or young kids at home. It's not always easy to see how you can accomplish what you want to accomplish in a day. I also have some affirmations that I use, which are inspired by Louise Hay. And I'll read them out for you. It gets to be easy. I am supported. All is well. Showing up is enough. My voice is powerful. It gets to be fun. Help is on the way. People need to hear the message from me, and I deserve to be here. Sometimes I repeat those things to myself on the way to a venue or on the way to a meeting. Write them out. Repetition helps with starting to believe these things to be true. And I do find it helps with my mindset going into a situation where I believe, okay, everyone here needs to hear this message, or they're here for a reason. If I'm feeling really overwhelmed and I think help is on the way, I'm just in that mindset of asking for help or being ready to receive it. So I do find affirmations can be helpful with getting yourself in a good mindset. And just to recap what we've covered, I do focus on the preparation, exploring your options, showing up as you are, not apologizing, and recharging and repeating, hopefully in future. I have time for questions if anyone wants to ask me anything specifically, but you can also reach out to me over email after the fact too.
So I'll throw a question out, Amy, and if anyone has one you want to put in the Zoom chat, if it's easier. But the question was like, I mean, this is very inspiring. Like I can see people saying, okay, I want to start this in my community. Like, and I know you're based in the Ottawa area, Amy, and there's a lot more options. Most of our clients are certainly in the Kingston and Bay of Quinte region. What would be the first step to saying, I want to start this community and I don't want to wait till later? Like, how would they go about doing this? Just, maybe even hosting an event in their own area that is baby friendly, mixing baby as a business and all of this idea.
Yeah, the main thing I've found getting started initially is just if you want to network with other people who are parents and business owners in your community, looking for a space like a library or a playgroup drop-in space that you can go to that might be a free space, or approach other community centers or business centers in your neighborhood to see if they have a room they could donate. And just getting people comfortable with, especially when bringing young kids, with talking about themselves, about their business, and asking for help. So I usually try to focus on, what do you need help with right now? Any feedback that you want on your business, and any resources that we can connect you to that we're aware of, and then sharing those after the fact. But those kind of meetups can really help with building up confidence and feeling less alone and like you're the only person doing it. In terms of the speaking, I would look at what the cycles are of the events that you're looking at speaking for or pitching to, and looking at the lead time for those.
Yeah, and when you mentioned lead time, I mean, even like 2 or 3 months in the age of a baby can make a big difference in terms of, I think someone said, whether they're a potato or whether they're an they want to explore their environment. So that in itself is true as well. Well, not seeing any other questions at this moment, because I think everyone's hands are full, but Amy, we have your email address, and I would encourage anyone to reach out to Amy, not just for that free guide, but she is an amazing resource as well. So as we're wrapping up today, I'd encourage you definitely to reach out. And to also, I hope that you feel seen and heard today. We knew it would be more intimate group, but the fact is that this can be the start of something much bigger in our region as it catches on. So Amy, I want to thank you so much for taking the time today, carving out the time, doing such an amazing pro job of prepping today, and being with us on this call. So thank you so much. I hope everyone has a fantastic day. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
See you later.